good, jet setters? Did Jay-Z ether Tupac? First, a little backstory. Let me play a clip of Irv Gotti on Fat Joe's IG Live explaining how the whole beef began. Here's what Irv Gotti had to say.
Now, I'll go back. Listen. I'm going to go back to Brooklyn's finest.
They got to stop biting my
All right, listen, I'm going to get you. The Joker moment is you need to hear a story that is just a new story.
Tell me this story. Why do you think Jay-Z
and
Biggie Smalls
I'm going to tell you. You got to go back to Brooklyn's finest. I was dead set against it. I was telling Jay, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. And he was like, why? And I was just like, he's too strong. I said, but before we take over the world, we got to take over the West Coast. Before we take over the West Coast, we got to take over the East Coast. Before we take over the East Coast, we got to take over New York. Before we take over New York, you got to take over Brooklyn. And he owns all that. And I was like, this is not a whack. So I was just like, I was in fear that I was like, yo, you may come off like this little man. You understand? I didn't want him to battle. I just wanted to do it without his assistance because we was friends with Big. Like Big was at the Ain't No set. We used to go to these Italian restaurants in Brooklyn and eat. Like Big was a friend. I said on a business level, I'm like, man, this is so scorching hot. I don't know if you're going to be able to get him. So if you listen to Brooklyn's Finest, I want everyone to go listen again. And how the record was recorded, it was Jay did his 4 bars and then Big did his 4 bars. So when you listen to Time to Separate the Pros from the Cons, the Platinums from the... Dare I say, this is my opinion. I'm not saying anything. I'm not speaking for Hov. But, if you listen to that record, he was getting at him. But I said, Big is going to sniff it out. And I said, if you give him the thing, he sniffed it out. Yeah, they told me you're holding more drugs in the pharmacy. You ain't harming me, so pardon me. He was going right back at him. And then what Big did, which I was like, that's why Pac was on Jay, because of Brooklyn's Finest. If they have twins, you probably have 2 Pacs. Get it? 2 Pacs. And Jay's on the record with him. So now he's like, you, ain't no like me, Jay-Z. Then he start bombing on Jay.
All right, it's time for the main event. Napoleon reacts to DJ Clark Kent saying Jay-Z got an ether-like diss track that he performed on Tupac back in the day that's unreleased. Here's what Napoleon had to say on the Art of Dialogue.
DJ Clark Kent, right? I want you to look at this interview he did some years ago about Tupac and get your opinion.
Jay did a record going at Pac. But right as it was about to come out, son died.
Wow.
We performed it, though.
Yeah? Where'd you perform it?
Performed it once. And you have to understand, like, the chip on Jay's shoulder is so crazy that it's just like he had to perform it. We was at the Apollo.
Wow.
He was at the Apollo and he performed it, and it was scathing. Like, crowds was like, oh, shit! Like, it was super hard.
Wow.
Super hard. Like, if he was alive, there would have been no coming back. Like, nothing.
Like going into like super ugly territory?
No. This was so tough. Like, it, to me, it probably was like one of the hardest diss records I've ever heard. It's because we were like, what the fuck we got to do about this with this shit? Why you know what I'm saying? And oh boy.
When's the last time you heard it?
We only heard it maybe like 3 or 4 times. We heard it before when it was made, and then we heard it at the show, and then it went away.
Wow. So you don't actually like have a copy of it?
Super tough, huh?
You don't actually have a copy of it?
I didn't want a copy. I wouldn't. I
Like
didn't
it's
want a copy
radioactive?
because I know I would have been compelled to figure out how to play it.
So that's the interview. He said that Jay-Z, he had a Tupac diss record. He performed it at the Apollo, but he never came out with it because Tupac died. How you feel about that?
It just shows that he really trying to put fuel on the fire, because if Jay-Z did a diss record, which he probably did, you understand, hip hop, that's what happened. You're gonna mean Nas did a diss record, but when Pac died, out of respect, he didn't release it. You know what I mean? That's respect. That's what happened. And I'm sure Pac, if he was alive, he was expecting some type of records coming at him. That's how it works in hip hop. But for him to say, I would have figured a way to put it out, it just shows you that he didn't respect Jay-Z, you know what I mean? And that he trying to put the fuel on the fire. That's why I said, once again, these guys are like, they from like the suburbs or something. They don't really understand, you know, our culture, it seemed like, you know, it just like, you know, because people that knows what could happen, like Jay-Z, I'm sure the reason why he didn't put it out, because he knew it was going to put fuel on the fire. You know, it's going to make things worse because Jay-Z really come from the inner cities. He really seen what happened. He was mature enough to not do it. You know, you got to respect that. The same with Nas. But this guy, Clark Kent, I guess he just want to be, I guess he probably wanted to be famous because of that. You know what I mean? Just, some people weird, bro.
For the people out there that don't know, right, what was Tupac's issue with Jay-Z?
I think Pac's issue was with Jay-Z. He thought Jay-Z was dissing him. And he thought, I think Biggie did his song with Jay-Z where he said if Faith had twins, she would have had two Pacs or something like that. And it was on a Jay-Z album. So Pac really felt like, okay, like you allow him to come at me on your record. So that's when he started going after him.
And Pac, he seen some videos that Jay was in, right, that he didn't like.
Oh yeah, it was a video. They was playing like Monopoly or something, and he was like, "There's a lot of West Coast money on the West Coast. We coming after that money." Like, you know, so Jay-Z was actually putting himself in the middle of the East Coast West Coast beef with these songs and stuff like that. And it was fair play because if that's your if you Biggie homie, you know what I mean. But out of respect, you know, I respect people like that they like Pac. You know what I mean. When he met Nas, I know we mentioned this in another interview. He told Nas, I had records dissing you, but I'm going to remove them because that's a respectful thing. But unfortunately, he died and he wasn't able to do it. So for Jay-Z to show that respect, it shows a little bit about who he is. Because I'm sure if he would have put out a diss record, he probably would have made a lot of money. He probably would have sold records. Nas did the same thing. Because real people that come from like the hood that know these things, they won't be thinking like a Clark Kent. You know what I mean? The guy sound like... like, you know what I mean? It doesn't sound like he's in touch with reality. Why put it out? You know what I mean? Pac is dead. Why put it out anyway? It won't make any sense.
Right. And he made another comment saying that if that record would have came out, it would have never been no comeback for Tupac.
Yeah, of course he got to say that. You know, at the end of the day, like, I think, you know, that's how hip hop was back in the day. You diss, you know, one person diss one person, he come out with another record, he come out. It just got ugly in our time. In the 90s, it got ugly because now we got to the point where, you know, violence starting to get involved in it. And now it's even worse if I'm not mistaken. You know what I mean? So by them doing records, it's almost like you have to. You have no other choice. Nobody would have respected them if they would have not done any records back, you know? But I'm glad they didn't put it out. That just shows they have respect.
In the video you was talking about, yo, where Tupac felt like Jay-Z, he was taking shots at him, dead presidents.
Yes. True.
So Tupac, he actually seen that video then?
Yeah, Pac used to pay attention to everything. Like, when he came out of jail, everything that was coming out of East Coast, every record, he was paying attention. Because Pac originally from New York, so he knows subliminal messages. A lot of New York rappers do the subliminal disses. So that's how he was catching on. It's like, yeah, maybe sometime he was paranoid. You know, maybe sometime because he started going after everybody. So sometime maybe he just thought when it really wasn't. You know what I mean? Like Nas said, I really wasn't dissing you. And Pac believed him. At the end, Pac, when he told us, he said, I believe him, and that's why I'm going to remove the songs dissing him.
Man, Jay-Z do not get enough credit for just how strategical and war ready he really is. Check out this clip on the screen of 50 Cent explaining why rappers constantly disrespect Jay-Z. Peace.